Hello, welcome back to the Kitchen Table Modelers Workshop. My name's Ian, this is my kitchen table where I do all my modelling. So we're at part 4 of the Revell 132nd Heinkel He111 big build, and yeah, it's been a little while since I put up the last part of this build, mainly due to life commitments, work commitments, changing the way I work to fit in with everything that's going on at this moment in time. So it's kind of restricted my modelling time a little bit. I've also gotten a few projects finished out of the way, which has freed me up to get refocused back onto the Heinkel He111. So we left off in part 3 finishing the amazing super fabric seatbelts for seatbelt harnesses for the cockpit, and I have done sort of large construction pieces for the kit off video, but I've taken photographs to do a montage which we'll go into in a bit more depth once I've shown you the overall point where we're at. So if I grab the kit, then you can see, oh, it's massive. It's a huge build, but you can see we've got the main structure of the model together. So let's pop the propeller off. We've got the centre section with the bomb bay joined on to the fuselage. We've got the outer wings joined on, flaps, ailerons, horizontal stabilizers, elevators, rudder and tail fin, all glued together. And to be honest with you, I have to say there was a couple of problems. There was a major problem which I've overcome, but overall, those problems aside, the fit and finish of this kit is actually really quite good. The joints, we can look into it a bit more depth, but the joints you can see here on the upper wing surfaces are brilliant, tightly closed. There's no filler in any of that. That is just test fitted and then glued and held in place whilst the glue set. And the same goes for the outer wing joints here and here. The joint here is not too bad. None of this is finished yet, and there's no filler in any of this. And that's just a rough polish on the fuselage seam joint, and it's pretty good. It needs a little bit of filler, but it's a huge model, so you know it's all right. So I have to say the fit and finish is brilliant. We've got the upper turret finished, so it's ready for paint, and then getting the last fabric harness on, and then we've decided to leave the top of the fuselage detachable so you can actually see in all the detail inside. So that's where we're at. So what have we got to do? Well, in order to get to paint, I've got the right engine nacelle done, and there's plastic filler here and a few bits that need sanding down. So that's glued together and on. So we've got the left engine nacelle to do. We have the gondola under the fuselage to do, and then obviously the huge project will be getting the canopy glazing done for the front of the aircraft, which entails also doing the cockpit instrument panel and a few control levers. So we've got to figure out how we're going to paint all that detail and paint the inside of the glazing before we put it all together, glue it onto the model. Then we can mask up all the glazing, we can mask up the wheel wells, mask over the bomb bays, and seriously look at actually getting some paint onto this. So yeah, it's been rumbling on for quite a while, but we're pushing on. So what we're going to do is I'm going to look at a quick montage of the photos I took as I was actually putting it together. I'll talk you through that. Then we'll get the camera down onto the desk and we will look at finishing off the left engine nacelle, which is basically a mirror of the right engine nacelle. So enough waffling, let's get the camera down, let's get on with it. Okay, so looking at the first photograph, you can see we've got the fuselage glued and taped together, as with the wings. The wings are actually on sponges to reset the dihedral angle after I repaired the brake on the front wings and the bomb bay. Once that was cured up, then we looked at joining the wings to the fuselage and getting a good tight seamless joint on the upper wing to fuselage joint. We did that by bringing the wings up and holding the pressure with some tape. When that was cured, then we focused on getting the lower wing joints together. So a pot of paint in the middle of the wings and some tape spanning from wingtip to wingtip, which brought the pressure on the wings to bring the lower joints together, again achieving a good seamless joint, and it actually went really well. From this then I focused on getting the tail fin and the horizontal stabilizer and elevators glued together, 2-part elevator, getting them at the same angle using a sand and sponge to keep them even, and we let that set up. When that was all set up, tape was removed and we fixed on the ailerons and the flaps, left it cure before we then moved on to the engine nacelles, which is what we're going to watch me building in the next step. Okay, so we're on the table now. Hopefully you've all seen the montage now, and you can see what went together, or what I had to do to get the whole fuselage together. And just going over the point I made about the problem I had. So if we look at the bomb bay, if I can get that to focus just there, yeah, there we go. So this piece of plastic here in the center wing section, so we're looking from here to here is the center wing section that the bomb bay was built on. When I was building it together, I built the outer wing sections and fastened them to the middle wing section to make one whole wing piece, which I think if you hadn't put the photo etch bomb bay in and it was just the Eduard, the Revell, the kit bomb bay that you put in, you would have had the intrinsic strength because it was all plastic welded together. But because we'd cut a lot out to get the PE bomb bay in from Eduard, then all you had was that very, very thin piece of plastic there, and it broke with the strain of me manipulating it, getting it together. And when it broke, the bomb bay shattered and it all went to pieces, and I pretty much had heart failure. I really was quite despondent because I thought it was ruined. However, take a breath, take a step back, gather all the pieces together, reassess the situation, and then basically I re-glued the bomb bay back in, got it all back together, got the wings on, got it all glued together, and there really isn't too much of a problem. And I'm quite happy how it's gone. So yeah, it just shows you can come back from a major problem. There's obviously a lot of finishing work to go on here, you know, getting seams cleaned away, getting the edges of the PE fitted, maybe a little bit of filling. But on the whole, once we get the bomb bay doors in place, it's going to look spot on, and you'll never know that we had a major disaster. But yeah, that held me up a bit, but I was glad we got past it, and I'm really glad we got to this stage because it really is a fantastic model and it's going to be an amazing display piece. But anyway, let's look on to the engine nacelle itself. So we've got 3 sprues here. We've got the pieces, front, bottom, 2 side pieces. We've got the top oil cooler scoop, and then we have 2 side panels here on this sprue, and then on this final sprue we have the lower radiator scoop and flap, and then the 2 radiator parts, and there is a bit of PE to put on these parts for the radiators. So I'm going to get all the parts off the sprue, get them cleaned up and laid out, and the PE, and then we can look about actually getting it all put together. Okay, so we're back at the table. We've got all the pieces cut out and we'll start construction. So starting at part section 35, got a side air scoop to glue on to one of the side panels. I'm assuming this is an oil cooler assembly we've got on the top engine cover, and then the whole engine assembly goes together in part step 37. So let's get on and start gluing bits together. I'm using my favourite glue of choice, which is Mr. Cement S. I prefer this over Tamiya Extra Thin. They're both really good glues, but I find with the slightly softer plastic that Revell use, that you get a better adhesion and quicker glue with the Mr. Cement S. So I'll just get myself sat down and we'll look at getting some of these parts together. So that one just goes on. If we can just get that stuck in there. Kind of tricky, but there's 4 locating pins on the back that hold it where it's supposed to be. So we can get one side and just touch the flow a couple of places, give it a gentle press, and that will catch that side there. And then once it's got a bit of stiction about it, we can get the rest of it on. So let me just gently push down. And same thing in here. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so there is a small gap there, but once it's all cured up, we can glue that again, push that down, and then I can fill that with a bit of sprue glue out of the my sprue glue tub, and that will close that gap in, and it will be really nice. So it's probably one of the worst fitting parts of this kit, but the front's actually not too bad, and it's got a reasonably good shape. So from that piece then we move on to the top piece, and we've got the two oil cooler parts. They just sit in like that, making sure that the detail faces outwards. So I'll glue in the first one and then we can sit in the second one, so it just fits in the slot. Touch the glue in, you can see how it sucks the part down to the plastic, get a good bite, and then if we lose the part, there it is, we get the other part, and you can see that there's radiator detail there, and then make sure that the radiator detail is to the rear. It doesn't help when you've got big hands like me. I haven't got my tweezers handy. We should be able to get a satin. The other way of doing it is get a touch of glue in your join, and then when we go to put this in, it should grip it. And you can get a scalpel, hold the back of it and flip it up and in. It would be easier if I just got my tweezers, but never mind. Once it's roughly in there, drop a glue on it. Push that again. So flip it up and then push it in. Okay, and then we'll brush the glue along. That will get rid of any glue marks. Make sure they're roughly 90 degrees to the horizontal surface. Try and move it forward or to the rearward so it takes up any gaps. So if there is any gaps, it's on this side of the part and not on that side, so you don't see it. Okay, and then we'll get the cowling top and then test fit that on like that. And it's actually quite a nice fit. And you can see, you probably can't pick up on camera, but you can see the detail there, and you can see the detail there. All we need to do here is touch and flow. So get glue on the brush, run it down like that. Glue on the brush and run it down like that. There we go. And that's it welded in place. And if you want to be doubly sure for these pieces, you can turn it over and touch the glue on the back. So they're completely welded in. There is no problem with that whatsoever. Right, so we've got that piece done, we've got that piece done. We're now moving to step 37, where we bring all four major component parts of the engine nacelle together. So this is the bottom, and I still have to do a little bit of cleanup here. So just get a medium sanding stick and then gently let the sanding stick do all the work. Just want to get rid of any flashy bits. And if you're going to get into the tight corners, then just take a blade and scrape in, and that clears off any flash. We're not worried about these ejector pin marks because no one's going to see them anyway. So let's have a look. There's section part 37 there. So we've got the bottom. I want to put a side on. Let's have a test fit. See what like it is. Now when I built the last one, the fit was reasonably good, so we can just hold the pieces together. There we go. And then touch and flow again. And you don't need much glue. The Mr. Cement S works really well with Revell paint, Revell plastics. What we do need to do is make sure that all these parts are level. The next part on, same again, so we just hold it in place. There is a little ridge there, you can see that sits on the inside of the edge there. So finger at either end, touch in the middle. You don't want to run the glue too near your fingers because the capillary action could then wick around your fingers and you'll get glue where you really don't want it. So we've got a small bit of glue on there, just enough to bite, and then we can come in and run right along the whole seam. And then give it a pretty nudge, little nudge. That's it there, home and dry, and that's really quite solid quite quickly. There's still enough movement and play for us then to take the top piece, and you can see we have to bring it together quite a bit. So what I tend to do is we'll do it all in one edge at a time rather than try to do both edges together. So introduce the two sides together. Not too bad actually. And again in the middle, touch, flow, and then a little gentle push together. There is no much in the way of locating pins on these, so you're just going to have to do it by eye. It's a big enough joint that you can easily do that, and then lift it up and move the second joint in together, and the fit, as with the fuselage, is reasonably good. So let's just get that in focus. There we go, so it's in focus. So again, touch and flow, and then press together and square up. So there we go, we can put a bit more glue on that piece of the joints, and that'll give it something to bite too. There we go, that's better. You don't want to push too hard because you'll end up squeezing too much plastic out the joint. There is naturally a panel line there, so we do want to try and preserve that and make our job easier when it comes to painting and detailing. Okay, so there's the general nacelle together. From there we're looking at part 38 where we're putting the front engine, or the fake front engine piece in through the front of the nacelle. So we'll just set that one down there. It doesn't matter if it's not fully lined up because once we get the front on, that will really pull it into shape. So orientate the part that it's the same as the instructions, same with that one, and then fit it in. Now it can actually only really go one way. If you look at the back, you've got the cutouts where the exhaust stacks are, it'll only go one way. But if you push that through and then pinch onto that, it'll actually naturally pull it into the front of the nacelle, and we can run our glue into the joints. And then give it a pretty tug or a little push in. And are we happy with that? Yep, that's a good tight joint. Now, we then take that part, we want to orientate it to the engine, and let's see what the fit is like. And there's the thing we've got to watch out we don't do is push this back through. So we might need to give it just a little minute for the glue to dry up. It might have been handy for us in this stage to actually do this part first and have it fully dry. That way when we come to manipulate it, putting the engine nacelle together, we're not risking pushing it through. So we want to just try and get rid of any inaccuracies or misalignments as best we can before we then come along with this part and fit it onto the front. Now being very careful not to push on the front. We can see it's not too bad, but there's a little bit of flash just here. So what we can do is get a good hard, that is a hard sanding board that covers the whole end, and then just gently, evenly push it across the front, so we're sanding it nice and flat and even. Now you don't need to do too much, you just need to do enough. It gets rid of any flash and gives us a nice even square edge. So we set that back on, then with a little bit of persuasion it's going to join, and that is a perfect joint. So whilst it's there, we're happy with that. Get the glue and run it in. Now that will naturally wick around as far as it goes before it basically runs out of liquid glue to have the capillary action, so you're probably going to need a couple of applications to make sure there's glue gone all the way around the joint, and then just gently press it in. And that, once you've got it all, gives you manoeuvred around. There we go. Gentle push together to set it up. Now this Mr. Cement S dries really quickly, so once it's set, it really does set quite quickly. If you wanted, you could get a bit of Tamiya tape just to hold over any of the joints that are not wanting to sit straight, but this one I'm quite happy with that. It's a good solid structure now. And what we can also do is just gently check for any misalignment and flash on the back. Again, I'm not pushing down very hard at all, just letting the sander do the work. I'm happy with that. So we can discount parts 40 and 41 and 42 at this moment, because we're going to paint it up and then we'll put a set of quick boost exhaust stacks, so they'll go on at the end of the build. So from there we'll move on to here. So we've got parts 44 and 45, and we are looking at parts 44, which is this one here. So he needs to go in on, if I bring the fuselage forward a bit into the picture, so he needs to go in there like so. And he should naturally sit quite square to the wing. So I'll drop a glue on the bottom and along here, the edges. And that'll glue it all in place. And then we're looking at, we've got part 22, which is actually now underneath the stand. So let's move this lot forward. We've got part 22, which is to go on the back. Again, there is a few ejector pin marks, but we're not going to see them, we're not fussed about them. So that's to be glued just directly on to the back of the engine nacelle. Now, we've already done parts 46, 47, 48, 50 we'll get to, and then we'll go straight to here. But what we do need to do, and what I found handy to do, is before we glue this one up, is we'll actually test fit the nacelle here. So that part goes there. So if we look at this side here, what we can do is actually build all this as a unit. So we've got the two side pieces, which is this piece and this piece here, that go, I'll throw them all over the floor. So you have one piece that goes on like this, so that goes in there like that, and then you have a second piece that goes on here, and then this piece in the middle. So in order to get this lot lined up properly, what we can do is we can put a drop of glue along here, like the instruction calls out, again checking for flash. So it's a gentle rub, and this is just a medium sanding stick, there's no coarseness about it, it is just designed to take the flash off. A little bit of flash isn't just too much of a problem, because the glue actually melts that quite quickly. So I'm going to put a drop of glue in there, and then a quick nudge just to take up the slack. Okay, so we're happy with that is, and then let's get this part here. So that goes on like that on the front of the engine. If I get it into shot so you can actually see what we're doing. So that piece there, we're working upside down, which doesn't help that much. That piece there goes on like that, and then that piece there, it fits in here, and they want you to fit it after. What I think I did on the other side is if I fix that there, a little bit of glue, we're going to get a better finish. So we've got natural lines for it to line up. It's got to line up with the end of the exhaust, where the exhaust stacks go in. So I figure if we can get this right, we can fix up any differences in the wing where it joins. So a little bit of glue. Hold it in position. Get it lined up as best you can. Gentle push together. Right, there we go. And that way then it gives us time to check the alignment here. There is a, if you look on the inside of these parts, there is a lining mark there for this part to line up to. So same again on this side. That part lined up there roughly. Again, we can adjust it once we get the glue on. Make sure you hook that hook in behind the end engine nacelle. So get it in there roughly there. You see how reasonably well it's lined up. Touch of glue. That will start the joining and bonding process. And once it grips, it'll give us a chance to adjust and get perfect alignment. So there we go. Get that in there like that. Check for alignment on all sides. Are we happy with that? Yeah, I think I am. Put a little bit more glue on there. So we'll really get it to bond. Gentle push together. And we can check the alignment marks inside, and we're happy with that. It's where it should be there, it's where it should be there. So we can put a drop of glue on the inside, on that alignment mark, and that alignment mark. Gentle hold together, firm but gentle, and that's it, solid. So we've now got a more substantial engine nacelle. Now that's slightly different from what the instructions were asking you to do, but I think it will make it easier to fit it onto the actual aircraft. So if we then come and go to fit it on, you can see that we come to push it together. Apart from that gap there, we've actually got a reasonably good fit now. That gap there we can fill in. And I think if we look at this side, I had the same issue there. You can see I put some sprue glue in that joint there. I can get the light on it so you can see and get the focus. There, okay. Turn that around so you can get a better angle on the camera. There. So there is quite a bit of sprue glue in there to get that joint to fix, and at the back a bit better. So that was the worst joint of the whole build assembly, and it looks like we've got a similar situation on this other engine nacelle. Okay, so now that we've gotten this part together, what we can also do is look at getting the radiator cowling on. But I think what I'm going to do first is actually get the engine nacelle attached to the aircraft, and then we'll look at getting the final radiator assembly on and ready to go. So I'm just going to have a couple of minutes of test fitting, and then I'll get back on and we'll show you how we've gotten on. Okay, so we're back, and I've got the engine nacelle attached to the airframe. So I have done what most models would do, and I've focused on getting a good clean top join, which we've got. It's actually lined up really, really well, so I'm quite happy with that. There is a gap there, but I'm not worried about that. I can get that sorted with a little bit of glue tape and filler. On the inside of the join, we've got a really good clean join there. There's no gaps, it's all gone together really well. It's joined on well, and then on the outside we've got a significant gap here. Now, I'm not too worried about that, to be honest with you, because we've got the same problem on the other side. So what we can do there is a little bit of super glue just to hold that in place. It's probably not even needing too much super glue. Just a little bit of tape just to hold that in place whilst the glue cures, which will leave us just a small gap at the front and a touch of filler. Probably even just sprue glue will take that up. Now, other than that, the rest of it's joined in really, really well. So I'm quite happy with that. There's a few slight discrepancies, but again, a swipe with a fine sander and polish will sort that out. Bearing in mind that this was an operational aircraft, if you look at them, then the joins are never 100% on engine nacelles. After use, they always do warp and twist a little bit, so you do get gaps and misalignments. But there's nothing in here that a sander stick won't tame down a little bit of re-riveting, and you can end up with a really nice engine nacelle. So, moving on from getting a nacelle onto the aircraft, the next job to do is to get all the radiator parts. I seem to have lost a couple, possibly fallen on the floor. But we'll get all the radiator parts together, and we will get the photo etch taken off the big head set, and we'll get the photo etch joined on these two parts, and then get these two parts in the radiator, which is this here. So they go into the radiator in the first instance, so these two get joined together in the radiator. The radiator vent cowl attached, which we have on this side, and it's movable on this side, so if we can get that pulled into shot there so you can see it's movable here. So if we can do the same, that gives us the option to get easy access for painting, and then we can glue it to position for final painting when we want to get there. So give me a moment, we'll get the photo etch and then we'll get back and work with this nacelle. Okay, so we are back. Just basically put it together as the instructions said. So the two radiator halves get glued together, set into the nacelle, and then you glue on this piece of plastic here. Try and just put a minimum amount of glue on so this will still operate when you're finished. Now again, I'm not overly fussed about these. I can get most of that out with a scalpel, so I can do that once it's all glued up. Now, if we look at the Eduard photo etch set, so this is set number, this is the big edge set, but it's actually set number 32331 for the HE111 H6 exterior. I think it's a common to all the variants of the Heinkel He111. So just slipped it. So this part number 17 off the Eduard set. There's a couple of locating tabs there and there that I needed to remove just so we can get this to fit, and that just slots in there. Make sure it's pushed down as far as it can go so it doesn't foul anything when we go and put it on the fuselage. Fits in nice and neat. And then all we need to do, a bit of Loctite super glue here, and it's just medium, again, ordinary bog standard Loctite you can get in the shop. 2 spots along the top, and then just push it in with the point of your cocktail stick. And being gentle, because this is a really, the radiator vanes on this part are really fragile, so we don't want to bend it or break it. And if we wanted, we could get a bit of accelerator, give it a squirt, but it doesn't need it. And then again, very sharp point on the cocktail stick, and then run a little bit of glue along the bottom, and that'll hold it all in place. Perfect. And then what we want to do now is we get part 16. This is a number 26 Swan Morton scalpel blade on a number 4 handle, and I'll have to sit a bit closer so I can see where I'm cutting. So you cut right up to the edge of the part with the point, and as long as it's a sharp scalpel it pops through, no bother at all. And you've got to give it to Eduard that the connection points for the parts are so fine that there'll be no cleanup needed for this. You do need to be careful though. It's not too bad because the parts of the connection points are really fine, but if they were any bigger then you need to consider having, say, a piece of perspex underneath it just to stop it from warping or twisting with the pressure of the blade. So we get this part, it's just for the front radiator, and same as before, we just pop it in. It's a lovely fit. Make sure it's pressed home, doesn't foul anything, lines up with the top of the part, so it's in nice and snug. Lines up the top of the part there, so it's not going to foul anything. I'll just get some super glue and wick it along. Again, with medium viscosity super glue, there will be a certain amount of capillary action, and then just take the reverse of it and give it a gentle nudge together until the super glue bites, starts to go off, and that will remove any gaps in the part, and you do get a little bit of working time. So a little bit of pressure, rub it in, and we can do it again here, just along the front, and that will secure it in every possible way. Make sure that it stays in there when we go through all the painting process. You don't want to put too much on though, because you don't want big blobs of super glue all over the detail. Right, so we're happy with that. Happy that the rear flap moves. We're happy that's all together. We can then look, and I just move that out of the way so we don't drop it, because it's got all the other photo etch parts for this kit. Move that out of the way. We'll slide that in over there. We want the glue there, and we can test fit that onto the engine nacelle itself. There's a couple of locating tabs, so we can just fit that over one side first and then gently guide it over the other side. This is usually where it gets a little tricky, because there's so many different parts going together, and we might have to do a little bit of alteration. So this part is designed to click in to there. That's that side in. Got a bit of a gap here. It wants to go, but there's something stopping it. And if we actually look at this, there is a lip along the front there which is supposed to clip under here. So it may be that this part's not quite in the right space, which is fine. What we can do, if we need to, because the glue won't have fully set up on it yet, is we can come in here and just tease that off a bit, make a bit more space. The other thing we can do to help us out is we can take, and this lip here we can actually remove if it's fouling, which I think it is. So we just come in, probably better if we come in with a slightly stouter blade as a scalpel, or we can come in with a coarse sanding stick and we can just sand that lip away so it no longer gets in the interference of the fit. And I've seen me having to do this a few different parts in this kit. When you're fitting the photo etch, is actually altering the part or removing these sort of joining tabs, because when you put the photo etch in, then it's fouling it all and it won't go together. So if we look at that there, we've just a few swipes, gotten rid of it all. Blow away any bits we've got in it, and we'll try and fit it again. See if we can get a better fit this time around. So let's grab this. Have a look. That fits in there. That fits in there. So pop that on that side. Like that. Put that on that side. So that goes on that side. It's wanting to go. So we need a bit of persuasion in there. There's still something just hindering the join there. Not quite sure what it is. You can see that there. It's a good fit on this side. So we need to figure out what's hindering the join. So we'll just have a look on the other side and see. Okay, so we can manipulate these parts a bit because the glue is not fully cured in yet, so we can move that around a bit. Because I'd rather have a good joint here and just fill in here than have to fill too many joints. So let's try that again. Now we've moved that part. So we've got a good joint there, reasonably good. A little bit of filler there will help, and we have now a good joint there. There we go. Still something hampering that. I'm not quite sure what. So what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to remove those two locating tabs. So we've got this tab here. We'll just come in with a side cutter's nip, and we'll do that with that one. See if that's making any odds. And what I'll actually do is I'll fully remove that from the inside as well. So we'll just come in and nip that away there, so it's no longer there at all. So you can see they're the same on that side, so we've just taken and removed that one, and we've taken that one all together. We'll see if that makes any difference. So we'll clip it in that side there, fit it on that side, and look so much better. So what we can do, now that we're happy with the level of fit we've got, is I'm feeling that needs to go there, so we might need just to run the scalpel down here and just take. There's a bit of a burr or something there, so we can just take that edge off there and be very, very careful not to go down into the wing itself. Right, so let's get a bit of glue on that joint there. Okay, push him in. Can set that on there. So set that on there, because that's where it's supposed to go. Let's fall on something. There we go. Right, I think we need to take off some of the top here. So we're going to reduce the height along there, because I think that's causing the fitment issues. Again, clearing all the dust out, that'll leave any dust in there, and we'll try test fit again. Yeah, we're getting a better join now. we're at the point where we can chance putting a bit of glue in there. So let's get that in the picture. You have to excuse me because I'm working backwards on myself. So no, that's no use. Let's try and get that side. There we go. So we've got a good joint there now. So we want a good piece of glue. We want it to go all around that joint. Get inside and wick inside as well. So there's plenty of glue on that, and we're just going to give it a gentle push down. And hopefully that will bite, which I think it has. And look on the other side. Whilst the dogs are moving in the bed, I'll push that over. Got a reasonably good joint there too. So this is the most awkward bloody joint in the whole aircraft. We are getting to the point where it's starting to want to join together. So we'll try it from this side then. And looking at this side, it's been a rough joint here as well, so it might just be a case of having to get it in and then ferret it in with a little bit of filler later on. It just doesn't seem to want to go at all. Can't see what's stuff on it. The other way of doing it is I think we need to take off this edge here. Being very careful with the photo etch parts. So we can open that joint up there. That gives a little bit of spread on the actual cowling itself, and we'll do the same in there. Open that up. See if that gets us the clearance we need to get this together. So if we just gently tease them apart a bit, and we'll give it another go. And sometimes you have to do this with models like this. It's not a Tamiya, so your fit's not going to be 100% straight away, but that's made a huge odds. We stand a chance of getting that together now. So run that in there. Give it a push, set it up. Happy with that. There we go. So there's one side in. So if we can get one side right, then we'll be all right for the rest of it. So I'll get that in there like that. Application of glue, give it plenty to bind with. And when that side's in, then we can get some glue on this side. Get that down as well. And then I'll get a clamp and we can clamp this closed. And that has to be possibly one of the crappiest joints in the whole kit, to be honest with you. Absolute fiddle. So get that in there like that. That joint's not too bad on that side. Yeah, it's just bloody awful, to be honest with you. So the other thing we could possibly do that'll make this a pretty bit better is we'll get some super glue in there. Right, you don't want to see me struggling with this joint. I'm going to get this joint together and then we'll get back and we'll sum up on how it's all gone. Okay, so we are back, and with a little bit of super glue and some sprue glue, which you can see, we've managed to get this engine nacelle together. So, got the other one, it's all working. They're both in, they're both level. That joint there and that joint there are the worst joints in the whole kit, and they've taken the most fettling to get together. So after that mammoth battle then, we now have both engine nacelles on, which is fantastic. So the next job to do will be looking at the instructions, is looking at, so we've got all this done here. We've gone through how we've attached all the wings and got it all brought together. Tail fin, rudder, horizontal stabilizers, elevators. We'll come back to the undercarriage once we've got all the painting done. The next part that we're moving on to will be the gondola. Put it together, and we'll actually have to mask up and paint the interior. So we've got parts 81 through to 86. So that will, and we'll look at the guns as well. And then from there, we will move on to, we've got parts 94, which is the start of getting the front canopy glass together. I think it finishes off, find it, yeah, so parts 108, 109, 110. So those parts there will be getting the canopy together. So I think that's probably a good natural place to stop. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to get that gap sorted out there. I'm going to let all this sprue glue, which is just a mix of tiny extra thin and evergreen styrene strip. So I'm going to let all that sprue glue that's in there and in there cure, and then we'll get it sanded off, see how it looks, give it a second application if we need be, and then once we're happy with that, we'll move on to the gondola. We'll do that in the next part, because I didn't think this part was going to take as long as it has, but that's sometimes what happens with models. It does take a little longer as you think. So we'll leave it at that, and we'll see you back at the next episode, which will be part 5, which will be the gondola. And then if we get part 5 with the gondola and the front canopy, we'll do that. If not, it'll be part 6 for the front nose canopy, and then we'll be on it. So there we are. That's the engine nacelles, and that's probably others, the gondola and the canopies. That's the bulk of the construction done. It's not typical how the construction went. I'd actually say the wings, fuselage and all the major components went together a lot easier than that, but they were the engine nacelle was probably the fiddliest part of the construction, and I wanted to show you guys just how I went about doing it. So moving on from that then, part 5 is going to be the gondola, and if I can get it filmed right and have enough time, it'll be the gondola and the canopy assembly. Once we've got all that done, then we'll be moving on to the paint, and we can figure out how we're going to get a really good weathered look on this without being too overly done, but with enough that it doesn't make it look like a big toy, so we can get a lot of interest. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, and hopefully that'll not take as long to get the next part done after this. So anyway, if you've gotten this far, thank you so much for watching, appreciate it. If you have any questions, please put them down below. I always read all the questions that come to me, and I always reply to them. I feel that if somebody takes the time to ask me a question, I must take the time to reply, and I appreciate anybody that takes time to ask me a question, and I'll give you my honest answer, and try and help you as best I can. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd appreciate that too. I enjoy making the videos, and with all the stuff that's going on in this world, if it's a distraction or a help with you in your life, you know, to escape, do a bit of modelling, that's fine. I will keep going. But if you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd appreciate that. That'd be good to grow the channel a bit more. So anyway, till next time guys, stay safe, Happy modelling, and we'll see you again soon at my kitchen table.